Today, we are exploring a superpower. And I don't mean flight or invisibility, though. Let's be honest, invisibility would be great for avoiding awkward elevator small talk.
I think we'd all sign up for that one.
Totally. No, I'm talking about the dual-faceted superpower of communication. But we aren't just talking about, picking the right words from a thesaurus. We're taking a really unique approach today.
Yeah, we are. We're looking at this from two completely different yet strangely interconnected angles.
Right.
It's a fascinating combination because usually people study these things in silos. On one hand, we have the psychology of decoding others, how to actually hear what people are really saying.
Underneath all their personality quirks.
And exactly. And on the other hand, we have the physiology of encoding your own message, specifically the literal physical workout involved in mastering English pronunciation.
We've got a stack of sources that covers everything from personality frameworks like the Big Five and the Enneagram, all the way to a technical guide on something called linguistic muscle memory. So what's the mission here?
The mission is to give you, the learner, a shortcut. We want to help you bypass those frustrating misunderstandings where you think you said one thing, but the other person heard something else entirely.
So it's like a psychological toolkit for listening.
And a physical workout routine for articulate speech.
Because here's the thing I realized while reading all this. You can be the most empathetic, psychologically attuned person in the room. You can understand exactly what makes everyone tick. But if your delivery is garbled because your tongue is fighting muscle memory from a different language, the connection just breaks.
And the reverse is so true. You can have perfect diction like a news anchor, but if you're not actually listening to the human being in front of you, you aren't communicating. You're just lecturing.
So let's unpack the internal work first. The psychology of adaptive listening. The sources use this analogy that I absolutely love. They talk about a personal operating system.
It's the perfect metaphor, isn't it? Think of it this way. Just as computers run on different operating systems, some are Mac, some are Windows.
Maybe some are running Linux, if they're really cool.
Right. Humans have these built-in processing styles.
Yeah.
You have some people who think by talking. They need to verbalize to process information.
That is definitely me. I don't know what I think until I hear myself say it.
Exactly. But then you have others who process everything in silence. They run the code internally and only give you the output when the thought is fully formed.
And the trouble starts when a Mac user gets frustrated that the Windows user isn't
Behaving like a Mac, exactly.
right.
And the goal of adaptive listening isn't to reach into the other person's brain and, install your operating system. It's to make your software compatible. You're trying to interface with them, not convert them.
But be honest, we're generally pretty terrible at this. Why is that?
Well, it's not malice, it's biology. We have what researchers call cognitive autopilot. When we're stressed, tired, or rushing, which is basically the default state of modern life, we just revert to our factory settings.
My factor setting is talk fast and interrupt.
Right. If I'm a fast talker, I assume you should be too. If I value directness, I assume your hesitation is a weakness.
The sources list some major hurdles here. One that really hit home for me was selective listening. Confirmation bias. We just hear what we expect to hear.
Right. So if you've already decided someone is difficult, you'll interpret a thoughtful pause as them being obstructionist. You won't see it as reflection, you'll see it as resistance.
Yeah.
Then there's the whole culture clash thing.
Yeah.
But the biggest enemy of listening, emotional reactivity.
The lizard brain.
The lizard brain. When conflict arises, that primitive part of the brain just takes over for self-preservation. Our focus turns inward to defend our ego rather than outward to understand the other person. You literally cannot listen when you're in defense mode.
It's biologically impossible.
It is.
Okay, so if the lizard brain is sabotaging us, how do we override it? The sources break this down by personality pairings. Let's start with the classic friction point, introverts versus extroverts.
Oh, this is where most workplace communication just dies. Extroverts often think while speaking. They need that back and forth, that ping pong. Introverts process internally.
And the clash happens when the extrovert fills the silence.
The silence that the introvert actually needs to think.
So what's the tactical fix?
Okay, if you're listening to an introvert, you need to use what the sources call the golden pause. When they finish speaking, count to 5 in your head before you respond.
Whoa, hold on, 5 seconds. Do you know how long 5 seconds is in a conversation? That feels like an eternity. If I do that in a meeting, people are going to think my screen froze.
I know. It feels excruciating. It feels like a glitch in the matrix. But
Yeah.
that silence is where they are doing their best work, their best processing. If you jump in at second 2, You are cutting off their best idea.
So I just have to sit there and embrace the awkwardness.
You have to sit in the discomfort, yes. And also, offer alternative channels. Maybe they communicate better via email than in some spontaneous brainstorming session.
Okay, fair enough. What about the other way around? If I'm listening to an extrovert who just won't stop talking.
You have to engage actively. Extroverts need that feedback to calibrate their own thoughts. So you use paraphrasing. You jump in and say, okay, so what I'm hearing is that helps them shape their ideas.
Because if you just sit there silently,
They might keep talking just to fill the void. They think you're not getting it.
that makes so much sense. Okay, let's look at another pairing that caused a lot of drama in my last job. Big picture versus detail-oriented. The visionary versus the analyst.
The classic conflict. The visionary feels boxed in by details. They feel totally suffocated. The analyst is terrified by the lack of a plan. All they see is chaos.
So how do you bridge that gap?
If you're listening to a visionary, you have to validate the dream first. Don't hit them with a spreadsheet immediately. If you say, that's not in the budget, within the first minute, you've lost them.
So what do you do instead?
Ask grounding questions. Something like, that sounds amazing. What do the first 3 steps look like?
And for the analyst?
Do not call it nitpicking. That is a trigger word. Never say you're getting too into the weeds. You have to honor their thoroughness. Ask them to summarize the top risks. You're using their operating system to your advantage.
The sources included a case study here that I think we really need to talk about because it was so painful to read in a good way. It was about Sam and Jenna.
Oh, Sam and Jenna. We have all worked with a Sam and a Jenna.
For sure. Sam is the structured project manager, lives in Excel, loves a Gantt chart. Jenna is the chaotic, creative director, ideas everywhere, never writes anything down, and they were driving each other crazy.
It was bad. Sam literally thought Jenna was trying to sabotage the timeline with her constant changes.
And Jenna thought Sam was a soul-sucking bureaucrat who wanted to kill creativity.
They weren't just annoyed, they were chemically reacting to each other. Every single meeting was a fight or flight response.
So how did they fix it? Because usually one of those people just quits.
Right. Well, the aha moment wasn't that they changed their personality. Sam didn't magically become creative, and Jenna didn't suddenly become organized.
They changed their process.
Exactly. They structured meetings with a specific vision stage where Jenna could go wild with no constraints. Sam wasn't allowed to talk budget or timelines. And then they had a planning stage where Sam took those ideas and built the structure.
They made their operating systems compatible.
They did. And the payoff for this, the why we should bother with all this effort, is rooted in neuroscience. The sources get really into the difference between oxytocin and cortisol.
This is the part that just blows my mind. Feeling heard isn't just a nice feeling. It's a chemical event.
It is. When we feel heard, our brains release oxytocin. It bonds us. It lowers our heart rate. But being interrupted or feeling misunderstood triggers cortisol, the stress hormone.
It puts us in survival mode.
Right. And biologically, you cannot collaborate when you are flooded with cortisol.
It reminds me of that famous Google research on psychological safety.
It's the same principle. Safety, not talent, is the #1 factor in successful teams. And adaptive listening is the tool that builds that safety.
But here's the tragedy of all this. Let's say you do the work. You figure out they're an introvert, you give them the golden pause, you formulate the perfect, empathetic response in your head, and then you open your mouth.
And nothing lands.
You see them frown, they ask you to repeat yourself, or worse, they just nod politely and you know they didn't understand a single word. All that psychological work is wasted if the physical hardware, your tongue and jaw, can't deliver the packet.
That is the heartbreaking transition, from the psychological to the physiological. Even with great empathy, if the mechanics of your speech aren't clear, the data transfer fails. And this brings us to the second part of our deep dive.
The pronunciation part.
Yes. And the sources on this make a very bold claim. Pronunciation is not an academic skill. It's a physical sport.
I love that framing. Welcome to the pronunciation gym.
It really is a gym. We have to understand linguistic muscle memory. Your mouth is an incredibly efficient machine. It wants to use the movements it's practiced for decades, the ones from your native language.
So speaking a new language is like a sprinter trying to learn ballet.
That is the perfect analogy. Imagine Usain Bolt trying to perform Swan Lake.
That is a hilarious image, but I get it. Huge power, completely wrong application.
Exactly. He has the strength, but his muscles are wired to explode forward, not to pirouette. When you try to speak English, your mouth wants to sprint, use its native movements.
Yeah.
That's what's comfortable. To speak clearly, you have to retrain deep motor patterns. You have to learn to plie.
And the crazy thing is, the first step isn't even about the mouth. It's about the ear.
Correct. You have to defeat what's called auditory filtering. Your brain is wired to filter out sounds that aren't relevant in your native language. So if your language doesn't distinguish between R and L, your brain literally treats them as the same sound. You stop hearing the difference.
So how do we force the brain to hear it?
One great tool is minimal pairs. Words like rice and lice. You have to drill these, listening to them side by side, forcing your brain to acknowledge the distinction. If you can't hear it, you certainly can't speak it.
The sources also mention shadowing, which sounds like a spy technique.
It's intense. Shadowing is mimicking a speaker instantly, almost simultaneously like an echo. You aren't analyzing grammar. You're bypassing the analytical brain to hit the motor system directly.
Yeah.
It's purely about rhythm and sound.
Okay, so once we can hear it, we need to physically make the sound. But there's a big problem. We can't see inside our own mouths.
That's the proprioception issue. Our internal feeling of where our tongue is often wrong. You think your tongue is touching the roof of your mouth, but maybe it's just floating in the middle.
So you need visual feedback.
You need visual feedback. This selfie camera,
It sounds so vain.
it does, but it's vital. Use a mirror or your phone. Compare your mouth shape to a native speaker's. If their lips are rounded and yours are flat, you're making the wrong sound. You need that visual data.
There are some tactile tricks here, too, that are pretty fun. The pencil trick, for example.
Oh yeah, holding a pencil between your teeth, it forces tongue independence. It's great for the R versus L distinction because it stops you from using your jaw to help get the sound out. You have to rely entirely on the tongue muscle.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The impossible sounds. Let's talk about the American R. Why is it so hard?
The American R is a nightmare because it creates so much tension in the mouth. It's not a tap, it's not a trill. The source described it beautifully. Think of your tongue like a cobra ready to strike.
A cobra. What does that even mean?
I know, it sounds weird, but it curls back and creates this immense tension. It's hovering right in the center of the cavern of your mouth. But it touches nothing.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. If your tongue touches the roof, you get a D or an L sound. It has to float. You have to build the muscle strength to hold that cobra pose,
And you have to contrast that with the L sound.
which is the physical opposite. For an L, the tongue tip must firmly touch the alveolar ridge, that little bump right behind your top teeth. R is floating, L is anchored.
Another one that feels incredibly awkward is the TH sound, the voiced and unvoiced ones.
The only way to do this right is to stick your tongue out.
Which feels wrong. It feels rude, like I'm blowing a raspberry at someone.
It feels socially unacceptable, I know, but mechanically, if your tongue is behind your teeth, you'll make an S or a Z sound. You have to commit. Stick the tip of the tongue just between the teeth and blow air.
And the sources suggest a specific workout for this so you don't trip over it in a real conversation.
Right. Isolate the sound first. Don't start with whole words. Just sit there and go, then add vowels. Fa, the. Only when you have the muscle memory do you attempt tongue twisters like 33 thirsty thieves.
If you rush it, your mouth just snaps back to the old habit.
Immediately.
Now, I wanted to spend a bit more time on this next part because the sources really emphasized it, and I feel like we often skip it. The music of English.
This is the difference between being understandable and being fluent. English is a stress-timed language.
What does that actually mean in practice?
It means that the rhythm comes from the stressed syllables. This is different from syllable-time languages like Spanish or French, where every syllable gets roughly equal time, like a machine gun. Da-da-da.
English is more like, oh, da-da-da-da-da.
Exactly. And if you mess up that rhythm, you mess up the meaning. The secret weapon here is the schwa.
The schwa. It sounds like a sci-fi villain.
It's actually the laziest sound in the world. It's the sound, like the A in about or the O in lemon.
Wait, lemon, it's spelled with an O.
But you don't say lemon, you say lemon. That is the schwa. And here's why this matters. To keep the rhythm of English, you have to crush the unimportant words. You reduce them to a schwa.
Give us an example.
Okay, take this sound. I can go to the store. If I pronounce every word clearly like a robot, I can go to the store. It sounds aggressive and weird.
It sounds like you're angry at the store.
Right. A native speaker reduces the function words. It sounds more like, I can go to the store. The can becomes can, the to becomes tien.
So we're taught in school to enunciate clearly, but to sound native, you actually have to mumble certain parts correctly.
In a way, yes. You highlight the content words, go, store, and you almost swallow the function words. If you stress everything equally, you lose the music, and the listener's brain gets exhausted.
This sounds like a lot to remember in real time. Okay, curl the cobra tongue, stick it out for the TH, squash the vowels into a schwa. How does anyone actually learn this without their head exploding?
Gamification and persistence. You can't learn it all at once. You need like 10 to 15 minutes a day. Use tongue twisters. But my favorite tip from the source is to use singing.
Singing? Really?
Yes. Singing forces you to elongate the vowels. You can't rush a vowel when you're holding a note. It forces you to hit the rhythm. If you can sing a song with a good accent, you're halfway there.
And tracking progress is key, right? Because you don't notice your own improvement day to day.
Absolutely. Record yourself. Read the same passage every week. The goal isn't immediate perfection. It's treating mistakes as diagnostic moments. When you listen back and say, oh, I heard my R tap the roof of my mouth that time, that's a victory. That means your ear has leveled up.
This has been a massive deep dive. We've covered the internal adapting your listening to the other person's OS and the external training your mouth like an athlete.
And if we connect these two, we see that great communication is really a mix of empathy and clarity. It's about respecting the other person enough to listen to how they think.
And respecting them enough to do the physical work to speak clearly so they can understand you.
Exactly. It raises an important question for you, the listener. The sources suggest that mastering a new accent is a psychological shift. You're literally rewriting who you are physically when you speak.
That leads to our final thought. If you are capable of rewriting decades of physical muscle memory in your tongue, something that happens subconsciously, what other default communication habits are you holding on to? Maybe your defensiveness in arguments or your tendency to interrupt.
If you can change the muscle, you can certainly change mind.
So here's the challenge. Tonight, pick one mundane task making coffee walking the dog, but narrate it. And don't just speak it. Perform it. Exaggerate those vowels. Force that tongue to hover on the R like a cobra. It's going to feel ridiculous.
You will feel silly.
But remember, you are not just practicing sounds. You are physically breaking the default settings of your biology to become better at connecting with another human being. And that is worth looking a little silly for.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.